They're unions. The contracts have been negotiated when times were good. I spent several years in police personnel and HR. I hired over 2,000 police officers. When times were good and you could afford that type of mentality to have police officers doing dispatching, for instance. There's no police department in the country that has a police officer with a gun and a badge doing dispatching. That can be handled by civilian personnel. If you walk into any police precinct, there's one person that's taking reports. I can train a senior citizen from the community. They could work 2-hour shifts. It's a check the box. You walk into the station, you want to report that your car was stolen. They check off the box what time it was taken, where it was taken, and it's fed into a computer. And so not only civilians, but you can have volunteers and reservists do these jobs. But it has always been contractually, that's a union position. So if you walk into a precinct and you got 3 people that need a police report, you got one person that's taking reports. Well, the police officer that's handling the lien, the computer that day, it's not in his job description to go over and help and do a police report. So he's sitting there while it's lined up with people. And these are just basic management issues. I would like to address the issue of risk management, because that was a part of a question. I believe that if we're going to pay a police chief $150,000 a year, when we're paying other city employees $38,000, and I believe that we need to hold the police chief accountable for having a real risk management unit of the police department that is effective, that is reducing the city's liability year to year. That's the problem that I'm having with the police department right now, is that there's no accountability, and I believe as a city council person, they should be bringing that chief of police to the table, asking him, why are we paying a police monitor $13 million and nothing on the consent decree has been done? The city council likes to make the argument that they asked for the information from the city, but they never received it. It's all on the internet. Every report that the monitor has put out is on the internet. You're writing a check. You're not having any accountability with regards to the police chief making progress on the consent decree. There's no service more basic to the city that when you call 911, the police show up. There's a national average for police departments with regards to response time. If we're going to pay the police chief $150,000 a year, I will admit our problems are severe. However, that's why we're paying him that amount of money. I want to see the response time for 911 calls reduced to a national average, or he should give some of that money back, or we should take it back because he's not performing. It should be an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. And we should require directors of departments, such as the chief of police, to perform. And if they don't perform, then there ought to be consequences for it. Generally, I'm against privatization. I think city employees can do the work better. I believe that when you have city, the city employee lives in this city, and we have 13,000 city employees currently. Half of them don't live in this city, but I believe any city employee, whether it's police, fire, or the water department, if they live in the city, they have stronger roots and ties to the city. They're probably here for a sense of service more than a sense of adventure. At least I know that's true in the police department. Roots and ties to the city are more important. I believe that when you privatize, you are really abdicating your responsibility to manage and train. If city employees are managed properly, are trained properly, I think that they'll do the job better. I think when you privatize, you get an outside agency to come in, you lose the ability to monitor the progress of those employees. So in general, I believe, I'm not a believer in privatization. However, I do believe that there are going to be opportunities that it will make it necessary to privatize, but that will be few and far between. We're $300 to $400 million in deficit, and as I started this conversation, we must stay out of receivership. The consequences for municipal bankruptcy or receivership are too dire. And so you're going to have police, fire, EMS, pick up the garbage, and everything else is going to be on the table for at least elimination, merger, or consolidation. You know, I think the Bing administration, as some other people in Detroit found out, that DOT is a core service. And so I don't believe in any across-the-board 10% cuts of services. I think that the city needs to prioritize the services that are most important, and then use an approach that is not a broad approach, that we're eliminating services or consolidating or merging services that don't meet the prioritization that you've set. With that said, well, I think that's probably enough said on that. Well, certainly police, you're not going to be able to get rid of police. You're not going to be able to get rid of the fire. You're not going to get rid of EMS. You can't get rid of picking up the garbage. But certainly you can get rid of the administrative hearings court. That function could be, it costs $2 million. They write about $40 million worth of fines. They have no ability to collect the money. It was a service that was provided by the 36th District Court. It could go back tomorrow. I'm not sure that we can afford the ombudsman. That budget is large. I'm not saying that it's not a needed service. I'm just not sure that in our fiscal situation we can afford it. There are a lot of services that I would like to see stay, but we have to live within our budget. And I'm not trying to balance the budget because first of all, I think the deficit, doesn't get talked about enough in terms of the yearly structural deficit and then the historical $300 to $400 million deficit that has been allowed to accumulate over the last 6 or 7 years. That part of our deficit is not going to be eliminated in 1 year. You have to chip away at that over the next 5 or 6 years, and you need a strategic plan to do that. But I do believe that we should not be spending any stimulus money on operating expenses, such as for DOT. If you spend it for operating expenses this year, you're going to be in the same position next year, except the money will be gone. And so I think stimulus money should be spent on tearing down houses and rebuilding our neighborhood, building jobs where the money is leveraged and it can reduplicate itself. It should not be spent on operating expenses, and that's where the tough decisions are going to come in. I mean, these are very tough decisions. Over my career, my 26-year career in Detroit, for 3 years out of 5, from 1980 to 1985, I was laid off. It was very disruptive to my family and to me. I understand the hurt that can cause families, but we have got to structurally right-size our city and fix the budget. Does that mean that we're going to do it on the back of the workers? I don't think so. I think that there are plenty of savings in efficiencies, in waste that if we can rid our city, our local government of waste, and then corruption. I think there's enough public corruption going on with regards to the water department and no-bid contracts, that if we just cleaned up our processes, we would be able to save at least a sufficient amount of money that we would be able to mitigate some of the cuts and some of the layoffs that would be necessary. I'm for districts, for sure. This race is too expensive. It's much too expensive. If I were running a race in a district, I could walk it twice. I could go to every community meeting. I could go to every church, every business. Trying to do a citywide race for 140 square miles is just cost prohibitive for most people. We had 167 candidates in the race. A lot of them were excellent, great candidates. They can't get their voice heard above the herd, if you will, because they can't raise the money to do it. The race shouldn't be about money. It should be about an ordinary citizen that has the capability of doing the job. And I know some good block club captains that could be city council people. They do a great job in their neighborhood and their blocks. They understand the problems. I think that if you're dedicated, you can read, you have common sense, and you can make good decisions, that you can be a city council person. So I'm definitely for districts.